Well, here we are, equal parts lazy and committed. So I am actually doing this on editing software and not simply recording a replay. But the process of actually recording games in Russian aircraft has been incredibly frustrating, and I just forgot to hit record on this one. So here we are looking at a replay, and this is the LA-7 Bravo. The LA-7 family has they're interesting aircraft. Uh, they've got really solid low altitude performance, and similar to some of the other aircraft I've talked about, the instructor does them pretty dirty. This is another aircraft that picks up about 4 degrees per second of turn rate when flown without the instructor. The airframe itself is actually more maneuverable than that of the AC-3, but you wouldn't know it if you flew them back to back. Um, This aircraft has been the subject of a few videos recently. A couple of folks have recommended it. I decided I would try it out. And in contrast to the teams and the matches you get, the guns are actually really nice. Um, Coming into a fight here, staying relatively low, trying to see who I can engage at my altitude, as well as maybe who I can bait. And the P-51 went down, no issues. The F4U-4B is going to take it all the way to the deck here. A couple of 190s that were higher than me. And now I'm just kind of stuck in the middle and wondering where I should go. And this is a precarious spot to be in. But this is a uniquely Russian or Japanese problem for me because I would never consider positioning myself low and in the middle in an American prop. I would definitely be flying straight for either the one flank or the other, or I would be trying to pick up more altitude. But there are a lot of aircraft here, and I decide to dive since I see, I think, one, maybe two friendlies down there. And that's the flight regimen where the LA-7 excels. And in a lot of ways, the natural food for the LA-7 is aircraft on the deck, particularly when the LA-7 has an energy advantage, because it is very, very difficult to outproduce the LA-7 in energy at low altitude. It's fairly hard to outmaneuver the LA-7 at high speed. And that was a Bearcat I just chunked there, and they put it into the ground. And I think probably my single most shot down plane in the LA-7 is the F-8F. Um, that's one of the F-190s from earlier. I could hear them coming in, and as I sometimes say, it's better to be lucky than good. I didn't know exactly when they were going to take the shot, and I maneuvered just a little bit. And then, of course, because the 190 flies like a brick compared to the LA-7, once I got through the first pass, I was able to just sort of just continue the turn. And then the other challenger we have here is the G55, which tough choice for him. Couple options. He didn't go for me there. So we continue the furball. And this is honestly, like, this is the good and bad of furballs. Sometimes you get lucky and the enemy picks a different target, and sometimes you don't get lucky and the guy coming in from the position of advantage smacks you right out of the air. Obviously, in this case, we get a little bit lucky. The 190 doesn't need any further help from me going into the ground. We end up speeding up the video here just a little bit because the G55, I'm not trying to say he's not a good pilot. I'll just say his sportsmanship is lacking a little bit here. After coming in from on high, finds himself in a position where he doesn't have a clear advantage, and rather than take the fight, he goes back to the airfield. And you're going to see him here as I turn away from the airfield and head back towards center map. He doesn't land, he's not damaged, he's not intending to rearm or repair. He's just using the AA to get himself out of a bad situation that he got himself into. It's one thing when your aircraft is in a tough spot and you don't have a lot of options, but this is an individual that climbed, dove in from a position of advantage, and then rather than play out the fight that he started from a massive advantage, decides to run back to the airfield as soon as he doesn't have it. Not cool. Anyway, I dumped way too much ammo on this guy. The replay does a great job of highlighting where I was actually aimed versus where I thought I was aimed in client. It happens. I don't even think I got a severe damage for that, but he's missing half of a wing. He's a big chunky bomber. He's got some other damage he's going in. But that does put me in a tough spot here, where even if I weren't constrained by fuel, and I am to some extent, I would have an issue where I am constrained by the ammunition that I have remaining. So we've got a G55 and the 190. This 190 is actually going to end up flying a phenomenal match, or he's going to end up with a phenomenal match result because my teammates decide to just start feeding him their planes. Again, I'm not going to I don't know what he was thinking, but the I-225 here, tremendous engine, awesome energy production, a plane that loves to fight in the vertical. What he is doing here, I genuinely have no idea. He's throwing away altitude for really no reason I can determine, and then he decides to keep taking the fight low. And taking the fight low, keeping the fight fast, massively favors the 190 over the 225. And our friend, the G55, fresh off being saved by his airfield AA, is creating a problem where I can't just immediately dive down and help the 225 without getting us both killed. So unfortunately, he's about to go down here in the background. He flew to the 190 strengths, and it cost him his plane. And again, just from a decision-making standpoint, if your plane is not good at high speed, a high-speed fight probably isn't where you want to be. The TU-2 down there, I can understand his thought process, but he's about to feed his plane to the 190. And you have to, you just kind of have to scratch your head sometimes in this game. And at this point, I'm very low on ammo. Again, my own fault, spent too much of it on that bomber. But my plan here is to just push the G55 off and then hopefully hit a much easier shot while I've got a teammate that is maybe still alive. And obviously the 190 doesn't expect me to do that. I just off to the side. I do get the severe, I do take a chunk off of his wing, but I miss center fuselage. Luckily, he's going to go down. So he's going to end the match with 4 frags, though. I mean, really solid match from that guy. I do wish my teammates had decided to play that differently, but you can't pick your teammates. I do harangue the G55 in chat a little bit here. I mentioned that, hey, we should really we should rework airfield AA because this match should be over already. But that's okay, because now it's a 1v1 to clutch the match. I don't know if it was visible there in the replay, but the Yak-3U, tremendously powerful plane, fed himself to the G55. I had a Spitfire and the Yak-3U that both of them decided that G55 didn't have enough RP, didn't have enough Silver Lions, so they wanted to help him out. They were able to do that, and now we've got a 1v1 at the end. And what really surprises me here is that he's at low altitude, because thus far in the match, he's shown himself to be a better tactician than that. He is a pilot that knows better, I would have thought. Or maybe he had another strategy here that I'm not envisioning. But where I will give him props is he didn't run to the airfield this time. So he actually takes this fight and duels it out honorably here at the end. And right now, the G55 is actually playing the role usually played by the La-7. I know he's going to reverse me here, so I'm going to take it vertical, but I'm actually going to keep going past the vertical and then bend it into a turn. Better to be lucky than good. You can see the stealth round puff off of, I don't even know, the fuselage maybe. I knew he wanted the shot, and he very nearly got it. But now we're going to do low altitude energy fighting with the La-7. I would have been more inclined to stick some of these passes if I wasn't a little close to rip speed. And it was a good move on him at the start, where he pulled me, where he knew I was going to have to pull out of that dive so that I didn't rip. And he used that opportunity and very nearly hit the reversal. But now, unfortunately, he hasn't maintained as much energy throughout this fight, or really more likely just hasn't been able to generate it as effectively. And that is 320mm doing what they do. 4 frags, and honestly, that's about as good a match as I've had in a Russian aircraft, for better or worse. As a change of pace, I decided to stick a little montage here at the end. This is actually my first match, and as it happens, the first frag I recorded in the La-7 Bravo. And it's the opening of a cautionary tale. The La-7 has exceptional handling at speed. Dodging this aircraft, particularly if it's diving on you, requires a lot of skill and a lot of finesse. Unlike many aircraft that compress, you simply can't just yank the stick back and hope for success. If you are a P-47, even if you are a D-28, and this is the La-7 also at 487, you should not be attempting to dogfight an La-7. Yes, this is above the La-7's optimal altitude, but unless you are much, much higher than this in the P-47, that La-7 still does everything better than you. Here we have yet another F-8F, and the F-8F, I love the Bearcat, and it's a great low-altitude plane. If you lose awareness, or if maybe you decide to take the risk because you can get away from that La-7, or you think you can get away from that La-7, not a good bet. Props below it, in particular US props below it, are the La-7's favorite food source. And again, yet another F-8F. And I wanted to show the setup for this. This is a triple kill, but there's a Spitfire that goes down in the background, much like the Spitfire early. Wasn't able to get out of my guns, and this is an F-8F and a P-47 that were relatively low. The F-8F didn't have the energy to follow me up there. I knew he didn't have the energy to follow me up, so it may not be quite a full energy trap, but I'm going to get my energy back coming after him a lot more quickly than he can generate it, particularly while he's maneuvering, because the energy retention in the Bearcat is so bad. And what do you do at this point? If you are the F-8F and that P-47, you have no options left. Absolutely none. You can't outrun me, you can't outturn me, and that's it. So don't be food. That's my advice.